us here, all three of the faculty members. Manan was the first to write the exam. So I'd like to take his feedback and we'll go section by section as well. So Manan, take us through the DI section. First of all, how much data sufficiency and how many questions of each of the four types, toughness, everything. Just be more detailed about it. Yeah.
So this question I found compared to the other two sections was bit overwhelming for me. This section was bit lengthy and the questions took bit time. As in, if I talk about the multi-source reasoning questions, the whole scenario was bit lengthy and then the graph was bit hard to interpret. But it was doable because I was able to solve some uh, the IR sets that we get in the material. So with that knowledge and that level of practice, I was able to have an interpretation, but that took some time. So I I would suggest that going through those sets would be really important for the DI section. If I talk about what type of question,
Just to clear this, because somebody might not be knowing about it. On the portal, in the overall number of sectional tests, mocks, and topic-wise tests, DI also has 25 of them. So take care of that. DI means data insights section very clearly. So yeah, tell me now about each of the types. Let's say data sufficiency first of all, then graph, table, multi-source, two-part, and toughness of each.
Sure. So I would say there were roughly 10 to 10, approximately 10 data sufficiency questions, and which were almost on the same lines as we did earlier. There were no big surprises coming in, just that you need to be more logical in terms of answering those. There could be some traps in terms of the numbers that they are giving, in terms of the language that they are using. There could be, you need to pay attention to detail. That's the only key takeaway, that it's more logical now, but the pattern, the sequence, the structure is essentially the same.
If you say, let's say out of 20 questions on data, then 10 would be divided into graphs, tables, multi-source, and two-part. So take us through one by one. What was the easiest part for you? What was the toughest part? And so on.
So I would say that these questions in their base structure, in the core ability, they were in the similar lines to IR. There was no new pattern coming up, but I would say that it's more logical and involves a bit more calculations now. So you could expect some level shift up in terms of doing these questions. If I talk about the multi-source reasoning first, there were three questions coming in from there. Like the IR, there were some questions wherein there was a table, we need to select yes, no. There were some tables questions where there were two questions within a question that we needed to answer. And there were questions based on the scenario as well, some critical reasoning or the logical reasoning that we can say, not based on numbers. Other than that, there were graphs which we needed to interpret based on the graphs, analyze what could be the mean, median, mode. There were questions in which we were given some logical scenarios wherein we needed to find, let's say there are two airports, what's the distance, what could be the different paths that we can take, something on that line. So questions were essentially the same. There were again a question on the table format wherein we needed to see what the change happening with one thing increasing or the other decreasing. I would say just go through the questions really thoroughly. And
I think you need a lot of practice for this section. Essentially,
exactly.
that is what you're saying, that you can't just rely on basic knowledge that I'll handle it. Now, also, Manan, one important thing, how much of RC and CR skills come into this and how much math skills I don't think are complicated here. Math is okay, but RC and CR people doing, because I heard from Maurya also, probably Jignesh also, there are a lot of critical reasoning type of stuff in RC. That means your reading ability is very, very crucial. So what would you say?
Exactly. I would like to comment that earlier in the IR, we could, just focus on the main part and we somehow got an idea of what would be there in the question introduction or the types of question. But here it was not the case. You really need to go through each word and understand what is there. And the questions are not purely based on numbers. The questions are based on what's there in the passage, what's there in the scenario that they are describing. There are some questions which are not based on numbers, but what could have been done or what is the inference that is coming out. So in IR as well, you really need the critical reasoning. Sorry, in the DI, you really need the critical reasoning aspect as well. That comes with speed reading and the opinion and the conclusion parts.
Correct. Maurya and Jignesh, you've both been involved with our content development in the data insights part and everything. So first of all, tell the experience and tell what people should do, because you've developed the whole thing, the entire mocks, everything. So just how tough was it, number one, and how much of practice can they take it for granted? Do you think reading skills are important as well as? So one by one, Maurya, can you start, please?
Sure, sir. So I think the whole everything is in the name itself, right? The GMAT Focus Edition. What this exam requires from you is utmost amount of focus at all times. There will be a lot of data in front of you when you'll be attempting any question on IR, the integrated reasoning bit, right? All the 4 types of questions in there. And you will have to filter the right amount and the relevant information for you, and then the question becomes simple. But even for that, you have to go through the complete data. You need to understand everything and then figure out what is exactly working. So I think, sir, the content that we have created, the 25 sectional tests that you talked about, they are of pretty much the same. I would even go a step beyond and say a level above what I attempted to
I
do.
saw the diagnostic today itself once again, and I found it way tougher than what you have described to me.
Definitely, sir. I feel that the experience overall for me was much simpler, because when I was creating the content, I was essentially going through every question. I was trying to analyze them itself. I figured out how to go through lots of data sets quickly. So I think every student should definitely give the sectional test just to get used to all those data sets and to understand what to filter and what to, really stick on to. So that is the first important thing.
Maurya, the thing is related to reading and critical reasoning aspect of it. And also, what was the breakup of data sufficiency versus other questions for
So
you?
yes, sir. So for me, data sufficiency was somewhere about 7 to 8 questions. I got one set of the 3 questions on MS multi-source reasoning, about 2 questions on graphical interpretation, another 2 or 3 questions on table analysis, and the rest on 2 parts. So there was a good bunch, I would say, a good balance. For me, it was not a 10-10 shift. It was more of a 13-7 kind of a thing. But I believe that the exam overall was just testing how fast or how well I can manage my time at the end of the day. The questions were not that difficult, but just as I said, there was a lot to take in and then work on. That was the main reason why it was taking a lot more time for me.
I think reasoning means CR sort of skills also came into play at all, because there is a lot in IR like that. And like you
Definitely.
have to be very fast at reading and interpreting. Was that also very critical? Because I
Yes,
don't think too much about math.
yes, I would say directly, indirectly, both it came into it helped me, because in 2 part analysis, sometimes you get CR questions directly just in a different way, represented in a different way. And indirectly, I think when I was going through all passages and I looked at the question, I understood what I need from what tab is relevant to me, what is important, what I cannot look at. So I think CRRC will really help you on this front, but I would still say a lot of dedicated practice is necessary so that we can understand how to implement, how to put that into action. So I think those sectional tests can help a lot on that front.
Jignesh, also in the online version, what was the screen like for data insights? I mean, because we know in the regular version at the center, but online version one, and then describe the whole section as well. Like,
yeah. So because in the online version, guys will be using your own laptops. Okay, always, for DI section specifically, I would really suggest that you sit as close to your system as possible. Okay, you have graphs, you have tables, they're not always of the, exact size that you want to see. Okay, so that is one bit of feedback from my side. Secondly,
1 second, please. Could not understand. No, I'm sorry. What did you mean by this? Please just tell me.
So if there's a table, it's probably in an image format, and it may be small, it may be a bit bigger and very clear, but you need to be ready for if the table is very small, it will, if you're sitting, quite far away, you have to be very close to the screen. You have to, give that much, okay, because otherwise you'll find it very uncomfortable going through the data points, because you have to go through the table again and again, probably with the sort functionality. Or not all tables have the sort functionality. Some tables do, some tables, some questions don't even have that sort button for you. So you have to go through each and every data point. So for that, this will be a short tip and trick in that case. For the mix of questions, I had somewhat equal. Okay, so DS, I think I would have somewhat around 10 questions. And in IR, I will say 3 questions from multi-source reasoning, 3 questions from table analysis, and two questions from graphical interpretation and two-part analysis. Two-part analysis.
So, I mean, yeah, for each of them, difficulty level, everything. I mean, just in more detail, I'd like to.
Yeah. So for DS, the difficulty level is same as it was with the previous test. If you have gone through the DS traps, if you have gone through the DS 436, this is the golden ticket for DI section. Why? Because it will save you time for IR. That is what we want from DS section. We want to avoid picking up the pen as much as possible, solving as much as possible. And that is what you get when you do DS traps, when you do DS 436. Because when you read the questions, you are automatically able to identify this is where this question is trying to trap me. And you go through the question, you save more and more time here that you apply in multi-source reasoning question, the table analysis question, because they will take some time. Okay, multi-source reasoning, it has 2 or 3 tabs. The mathematics, the calculations is very easy, but you have to go through each and every line, even in the question and in the tabs, because every line has a different piece of information, a data point that you will need to keep in mind while solving the question. Okay, and even in those, you may get a table type question in multi-source reasoning.
Yeah.
Then you already have 3 tabs, you have 3 questions, and now you're getting table type question.
Possible in that, yes.
Both possible in that. Yeah, so it will take some time.
What were the toughest here out of these 4 areas?
Multi-source reasoning. I think based on time, because there are 3 tabs, you have different types of information. You have information in the question also, then you have information. If you get a table type question, I got a table type question in multi-source reasoning. So there is just so much information that you have to juggle, and you really have to practice more. It's not like something, so it's a skill beyond something. Okay, it's very logical, it's very common sense, like it's very obvious, so to speak. The only thing is you need to practice more, you need to be more cognizant of where are those critical data points. When you solve so many tests, when you solve 8, 10, 20, 25 tests, it becomes second nature to you that, okay, this is where the data points are, this is what I need to see to solve this particular question. So that is pretty much it in multi-source reasoning. Once that you have cracked, everything is done for. Secondly,
part was tough or easy? I mean, comparatively.
Table analysis, I got CR questions. I believe it was not table analysis at all. It was 2 CR questions clubbed into one.
Right,
so you get one part to strengthen, one part to assumption, something like that. Okay, so that's it. One passage, 2 CR questions. It is very straightforward. I would say somewhat easier than you get if you are doing good on CR and verbal section. So even easier than that. So if you have done the CR bit, then the 2-part analysis, I don't think will be as tricky as as you make it out to be. Graphical interpretation, I think of all the IR sections, it was the easiest for me. I mean, those questions were positive, negative correlation. It's like so well given, the material. It's just right there. Okay,
such questions.
Give it a second thought. So I think
Manan, Jignesh, I'll have to just
sure
interrupt. Manan has to leave at 9:15, so I just want him to wrap up. What was the toughest part of the DI section for you? Like, really, what would you advise? Like multi-source, you said, but apart from that, graph, table, and 2-part, what was really the tough part for you?
Apart from the multi-source reasoning, I would say for the graphs, you really need to see where the graph is falling in. So there were instances where very close approximations were needed within the graph. And you really need to understand what exactly mean, mode, median is. We know this, but they are asked in a trickier format, wherein you might give it wrong if you do it in a hurry or not pay attention to detail.
Material. Sorry. Go ahead. Sorry. Yeah.
No, I was just saying that other than that, it's more of critical reasoning and your understanding of numbers. Nothing new, no surprises.
So what I've seen in the official materials of IR and what I've been teaching also, there were a lot of questions on, let's say, time, speed, distance, and probability, and a bit of figures, like geometrical figure. anything like that still, or that is not coming now?
There were questions in on arithmetic, of course,
Mhm.
based on mixtures and allegations. There were questions on profit loss that I got in data sufficiency. There were questions from mean, median, mode, and probability as well that I got in data sufficiency. But yeah, but there was no coordinate geometry or some line slope. There were no questions on
I
this.
was asking more in the IR part, not in the DS. But DS is obvious that it will be
Okay.
there.
In the IR, I can say that there was only arithmetic, but none of probability over there.
All right. Manan, if you have to leave, in that case, you may please leave the discussion, because I know at 9:15 you have to leave. So just let us know. And if there is something that you want to add as the final tip, or something that you definitely wanted to share, can share and then leave. And then we'll continue with the other two. Yeah.
No, I would just focus on that, focus on the time strategy part, wherein stick to the time limit and don't overspend on some questions, because some questions might come bit tough on which you might lose your time and the overall exam. And don't rely much on the review section. Just have a uniform pace, maintain the pace right from the beginning. If things come tough, just bookmark and move ahead, but don't bookmark a lot of questions. For the DI section, you can prepare to the next level. Don't just take it casually as some people took the IR. Just read it thoroughly, follow the sets that are given on the top portal, and that would be more than sufficient, I would say. And also, one last thing I would like to add is, many students used to say that the top quant questions or the LSAT questions or the LSAT mocks that we are giving are a bit tough, and I don't think this will come in the GMAT. These were some questions that some students used to say that. I would like to say that you need practice of that level. That's what's coming in the actual exam. And I can say this with conviction that those questions are the true representation of what you will get in the GMAT. So don't hesitate in solving the LSAT questions. Those are really, really required in doing this focus edition.
Yeah. Yeah. Maurya, one more thing here. So when you said in the DI section particularly, what should they be preparing and how should they be going about it? Were there any major surprises in terms of like blocking your time, that there was so much time taking or something like that? Just give me some more idea about it.
Sure, sir. So I would like to go at a say a topic level on this one, because as Jignesh and Manan already said that multi-source reasoning was a bit tough. The reason was simply because they were trying to trick you with a lot of information that was not necessary. And I even found a complex graph which had a lot of diagrams fit into one place, and so it made it even more confusing for me to just understand what's going on at the end of the day. But once I started filtering through things, I could see clearly what they are asking. And it was essentially look at the X coordinate for the the relevant Y coordinate. So it really did not make much sense to beat my head over it. But I could only identify it once I spent a little good amount of time behind it, figuring out the same. And the first thing is definitely work on your reading speed, definitely work on the grasping speed, because in such questions, they will try to bombard you with a lot of theory. And most of it won't be really necessary for you to get the answer right, let's say. At the end of the day, that's the goal. And so I would say read fast, read what's relevant, try to understand, and then move on to what the question is asking. Before understanding what the question is asking, there's no point going through the data and trying to, filter out what's important and what's not. So I think that's a key element over here. Uh, Graphical interpretation, again, I had some 20 boxes in a single flow chart. And that was like, I got a bit tense at that moment that what are they asking? But I had to essentially focus on only 4. Now that tells everything what they are trying to do over here. So again, this is very. And table analysis, 2-part, pretty standard, no surprises there. They brought a lot of CR into that. They tried to bring strength and weaken into the 2-part bit. But again, it was fairly simple. I did not see any challenge over there.
Yeah. Yeah. Another thing, I just wanted to ask the last thing here, that when you say that these were the sections and data sufficiency questions per se, any topic that was underrepresented, overrepresented, etc. in your case?
So I think overrepresented, I would definitely say. I found from the 7 questions, I found some 2 or 3 PNC arrangement particular questions and 1 or 2 probability questions. So a lot of it came from there. Now it might be special to my case, but
Right.
I'm just putting it out there that happened. And but again, the questions were not that challenging, so might be just by luck. It might have happened just by luck.
And you were saying so much data was thrown at you and very little was useful. I remember teaching one multi-source reasoning question. Full 3 tabs are there. 2 and 3 tabs are not even once used for 3 or 4 questions. Like not even once. Just the first tab gives you all the answers. So that's a lot of surprise. This is again an official thing only that we have really taught. So this and Jignesh, any particular surprises on this section? What they should be cautious about? Because there has been a lot of talk about it, a lot of black box mystery around it. So if you can give some more idea about it.
I think it's all a hubbub actually. People are just panicking a little bit, but there's nothing to be worried about, I would say personally. Because the questions are, there is no particular special skill that is required for IR section, right? It's all there. It's just the practice bit. It's just that you have to be familiar with those type of questions. When you see that type of a graph, like Maurya was saying, he got 20 boxes in one, one big graph. I got a matrix and, it had some formula to it. But it's just that you need some familiarity with the questions. You just need some practice behind it. And I really don't think it tests a particular set of skills. If you talk about RCCR, you talk about trading speed, you talk about critical thinking, it's all the same here. There's no special skill required. Time management, definitely, if you talk it about as a skill, it is definitely there. DS, I found many work rate and time speed, distance speed questions. Some probability questions also. One particular graphical interpretation question I got, which was mixed with probability, but it was so easy. I mean, if you know that 1 divided by 9 is 0.11111, both tabs are done within like about 20 seconds. It's that simple.